Namaste. This is Yoga Therapy Podcast, and I'm your host, Shira, yoga teacher, yoga therapist, and Ayurvedic wellness educator. In these conversations with experts in the field of yoga therapy, you'll find out what it is and how it can help you and your loved ones to reclaim well-being. We'll touch on physical as well as mental health, physiology, emotions, women's health, spiritual well-being, goddesses, and self-development in the fullest sense. Listening to another story can change ours, so thank you for showing up, and let's begin this journey together. Okay, so hello everyone, I am back. I am a little late with this podcast. I have been a little slack the last few weeks, just personal issues, and I'm just very busy with my book. I'm getting to the end and I'm getting very excited. There's all these creative ideas coming up because I'm finally, when I thought I was giving it to a publisher, an external publisher, you always have an in-house editor. And I was thinking, okay, well, they're going to help me really polish this up, but seeing I'm doing the self-publishing route, I'm not going to have that publishing polisher, so I need to do it. And as I'm doing it, as I'm finally surrendering to the fact that I need to be the authority on my authorship, all of a sudden it's really distilling and crystallizing, and I'm getting to the very core of these concepts, and I'm bringing things that are very complex, and it's a deep dive into psych, these 5 bodies that we have, psych, mind, energy, physical body, and of course the soul, and then as well explaining how emotions affect those bodies and how we can use our emotions to actually turn that stream around from downstream to upstream by actually engaging ourselves in activities or expressions, because that is what emotions are, to turn the stream around. So if we notice we're going down a trajectory, we don't want to go down, but there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of momentum, we can change the channel, change the direction of that energy. So that's a complex thing, but I've been able to bring it down into very simple images. So that was very exciting. So I'm getting very excited about the book, and that means it's just taking all my time, basically, away from everything else. And just I haven't been feeling very happy lately, and not so motivated. And I guess that's okay. And I just said to myself, this is my podcast, and sure, I want to be accountable and I want to be there for everyone, but I have to be real and not just do a podcast because it's Thursday or whatever. So today I finally feel that I am willing to sacrifice half an hour for this. And today I wanted to talk about women. I know it was Women's Day on the 8th of March, and I did want to do the podcast then, and I slacked off. And I have forgiven myself. And this is the reason I want to talk about this, is because that woman's aspect, which has been, the feminine has just been deflated psychologically. Everyone's feminine is kind of discarded still. I mean, we're getting better. I mean, I think we're seeing things. But when you look at the state of the world right now, especially with everything that's going on, you can hear the sigh. It's exhausting thinking about it. And if I look at everything, if I've had discussions about disease and dysfunction and power dynamics, and it all comes back down to this. Why are people ill? Why do we have cultures and political issues, social issues? When you think about what the actual underlying causes of all disease, dysfunction, disorganization, whether that is physical, systemic, biological, environmental, social, political, it all comes down to imbalance of power, not having enough in and out. So when we're talking about those 5 bodies, if we're talking about the being, the human singular individual being, then it's also a fact of in and out. And that is a power play. That's a power dynamic. If there's too much going in on one side and not coming out on the other, that's not fair. And that creates illness. And what we are seeing now culturally, globally, that is an illness of power imbalance. Some people are taking way too much and others are being left with nothing. So there's this complete constipation, polarization, if you want to call it that. And yes, it's a polarization of masculine and feminine. So I'm going to read a part from my book at the end, which is about the myth, embodying the feminine to embolden the world, because we have lost the balance. It has become win-lose rather than win-win. So we need to find these partnership systems and societies rather than domination, which even under the name of democracy, there is a lot of domination. And if we're talking about health here, which, all therapies, we want to help people, but this is right now, we're just sticking more band-aids on band-aids on band-aids. We have to get to the core issue, which is, as a therapist, you also don't want to have power dynamics. You are not superior to, you don't have authority over your client or your student. We are equals. And this is the only way you can help people heal, is to encourage that feeling, to facilitate the power dynamic of equality. Okay. So, seeing women are the reason for life. I mean, we carry another life. We sacrifice our bodies for 10 months. It's not 9 months. It's a full 10-month or full 9-month term, and sometimes longer. So every single being that exists is because of women. If you think about it that way, why do we denigrate women so much? Why is there so much pressure for women's, even periods, to be controlled? When do we fall pregnant? That is also controlled with contraception, pill, all these external control factors. So this is the one power woman still has in this world, is her beauty and the fact that she can create another life. So when we go too far down that stream, as you can see, for example, on Instagram, that it's all about looking pretty, and even, I don't know, was it Instagram? Yes, where you can have Botox lips as a mask. It's very sad, all this stuff. And I wish people would just wake up and start seeing the detriment of this denigration. Okay. So there's a simple fact of dishonor, denigration, since monotheism. The goddess, in her infinite and often mysterious forms, has been trampled in dust of derision. Our current culture has thrown independent women, healing herbs, fascia, emotions, and healers to the wayside for thousands of years. We, who bear the children, hold families together, are basically the reservoirs and the sources of diversity. And we've been struggling for thousands of years, okay? So before monotheism, we had cultures that were matriarchal, and there was no genocides happening. For 5,000 years, there's been genocides. You can see that the people have become more war-like cultures. But 5,000 years ago and before that time, it was matriarchal. So people lived in harmony. We are, our whole system as a social species, whether you are human or animal or krill, we all emote hormones, and hormones are for social organization, social coordination and cooperation. That is why life exists. The whole essence of life is cooperation, continual communication, and discovering ways that we can work together and be symbiotic, like our cells, our DNA. 80% is not even human. It is still viral and bacterial and all these very simple kind of life organisms. That is our DNA. And I think that's why people from the tech world have this big chip on their shoulder about becoming more intelligent and merging ourselves with technology, because they obviously feel that we're not evolving fast enough. But I think we're doing really well with the complexity of our society right now. I think we're doing quite good. Okay, so let's have a look. I think I need to read this part of my book first. So the goddess myths relate to our development of self and purpose through emotion. Shakti stories embody emotion as power and passion expressed. Our inherent ability to embody and use deep strength of emotion unleash the desire to change and improve what we feel is flawed. And here that I'm saying we feel, to feel. A robot can't feel. A very super intelligent person does not feel anymore. Research on very simple fruit flies, but because fruit flies have such a short lifespan, they could quickly see if they chose the most intelligent fruit flies over many, many, many generations, what would be the result? Well, socially, they just started to disintegrate. They had no more communication. So it actually shortened their lifespan, and it shortened the societal structures of these fruit flies. So there was total disintegration. So when we speed up intelligence to a point that is not natural evolution, it's not healthy, because we need to adapt all the other systems in our body too. The body-mind complex. We're not just the intellectual part of ourselves, and that is definitely not the superior. So that is another part of my book, is that we have focused so much on the masculine side of mind. Okay, the masculine side of mind is the perceptive, analyzing, measuring, planning, organizing, logical, recognizing kind of mind. This is all very effective. It's all very penetrating. It's all very active. It's all very external. Then we have the other part of mind, which is often neglected, is with which we feel, is with we express, create, emote, imagine, fantasize, sensually experience. That part of mind is neglected, but it is just as essential for us as a social species. If we don't, this is also, you have to think, the output of the mind is our creative ability. It's the expression. It's connecting the dots and creating something new from that to offer to life, not just to extract, which is part of that logical mind. How do we find more scheming ways to take more from other people? And this is why we have people who have dysfunction, disease, whether that's mental, emotional, psychological, physical, biological. It is because of this extraction. We don't feel comfortable. Why do you think all these children are confused about their sex? It's not their sex they're confused about. They're confused about this world. It is not right anymore. We've gotten to a point where we all have to just stand up and say, this is enough. I'm sorry. No, this should be about yoga therapy. But I'm seeing that even in yoga therapy, if we're not addressing this underlying issue, yoga therapy and every kind of healing modality is just a band-aid on the deeper issues at work. And I know we need to be positive and we need to keep going with all the fun stuff. And I agree, but we also need to look at these serious issues and start thinking about how can we incorporate this understanding so to really affect change on a bigger level. I feel very frustrated right now. I feel very stuck, not personally, but on a global social political level. We're just going around in circles. Anyway, so feeling flawed, when we see, like my daughter's very discriminative, she sees all the problems, and I used to be the same, or I still am, but at least now I feel like I can offer solutions, whereas most kids, they don't feel they have agency or autonomy or the ability to create change. One, because maybe they don't fully understand the tools, or they haven't got the tools, a lot of kids. My daughter has the tools, but then if I don't explain how to adapt it in each situation, she will not use it. She also has a different character, so someone who's not very proactive. That also makes it different, even when we have the tools. So even in her, I see there is that feminine psyche. So the feminine psyche, when it's deflated, it does not step up. It does not speak its truth. So I found this very interesting from Carol Gilligan. She, in her last book, Why Does Patriarchy Persist? What this patriarchal system does, and the underlying issue of these domination systems, is that to have power, to even little boys already at the age of 4, they do not seek connection with everyone. Okay, that is our basic DNA, is to connect, is to seek union or intimacy, at least, or a relationship. We are constantly in a relationship. Life is one big relationship. But boys at age 4 have already learned that you sacrifice certain relationships for others. So there was a little group of boys, 3 of them, in a kindergarten, and a lady was coming there to study them, a psychologist. And she came and sat near the boy group. And one of the boys, a bit curious and courageous, went up to her and said, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I'm sitting here watching to see what you guys are doing." And he went back to his friends and asked them what they thought. Was she allowed to watch them and see what they were doing? And they all shook their head and smiled, and they threw a white sheet over her head. Now that is, in a sense, that is definite disconnection from her. But that is a very clear sign of what we would call, if you look at it, as a kind of violence for a social species. A social species, if you look at cells, they're always trying to find ways to communicate and work around each other, with each other, and eventually somehow create something together. So here you're already seeing that dynamic. The boys prefer to be with their boys, which means they have to throw this lady out of their circle. She's not allowed to be part of that. And you can extrapolate that to any degree, and you can see that playing out in our systems to these cliques and elites and all these kind of things. So we are destroying our society through these systems of domination. And we do that through not feeling, through not emoting, through not connecting, through not seeking reconciliation. And these turn up in our lives as problems in our relationships. Disease, which means dis-ease, unease for a long time. Dysfunction, so we're not functioning. Disorganization. Disorganization is the beginning of a breakdown within a system, whether that's a bodily system or a political system or whatever. So there's disorganization. You create enough disorganization and things will break down. You will have illness. That's what's happening. Okay, so I believe, or I've found out through all this research in the last 3 years, that it's through listening to the feelings and emoting them, so expressing them in a healthy way, obviously, understanding what is the underneath collective experiences that are causing this emotion. Because an emotion is not just your memory, it's not just to what's happening in the moment, It's not just to the past. It's a combination of many things. It is emoting. It is expressing that energy that is coming in through your body because you're having a relationship with either someone or something you read, or there is always a relationship. You're listening to my voice, things are coming up that is relating. Okay, so our feminine guardian has collected dust in the dark of our collective psyche long enough. We need new feminine symbols of power, purpose-driven to co-create, cooperate, be compassionate about encouraging each individual's strength for the collective. Passion is power. So you can see even now, to be passionate is almost seen as something negative, but it's a deep emotion which has a lot of power. So the Indo-European mythology consumed empowering native goddess myths and spat out silly stories of obsessive evil witches and stepmothers or meek, selfless virgin women. This insinuates intelligent, independent, and passionate women are dangerous, abolishing the feminine power. So this has been happening for thousands of years, impacting our psyches and the roles we unconsciously play out. And you can see that when you are in a relationship with your mother or a sister or a friend who is manipulating or somehow passively aggressive. This is the woman who is being suppressed, or you can even see it in men when men are just distancing themselves from you. It is because this feminine isn't allowed to play itself out naturally. There is repression. There is, a subjugation that is not healthy, and that leads to neurosis and all these other psychological unwellness. Okay, so the nurturing mother goddess wandered with us through cycles of abundance, multiplicity, and decay. So these are natural parts of life. To try and think that we can be endless beings, that we can be immortal, it's just stupid. Why would you want to be immortal? It's nice. Life is nice because you also die. That's a good thing. It makes things precious. Imagine if things weren't precious. The only way into a cantankerous absolute God's heart is forward and up. To fall is to fail. That is basically the whole thing that underlies our society. We can't fail. We can't fall. We can't make mistakes. Oh, yes, we can now. Now it's a big thing to make mistakes, but then it's become a hype, which takes away the power of just natural mistakes. Let's not go looking for them. They'll come naturally. And I think that's the big thing. There's such a fear of unpredictability. And that is what the female aspect or the feminine aspect really comes down to. It's cyclical. It's unpredictable. There is always movement and change. And to constantly try and suppress that is what causes disease. So I'm just going to talk about now how our cycles of a woman affect our lives on a physical level, but therefore also emotional and mental, because it's hormonal. Yes, we're having those hormonal experiences, but let's look at how that affects us. So our cycles are, for example, okay, we're obviously girls, maiden, mother, perimenopausal, and menopausal. Okay, so there's already 5 stages in there, 4 stages really in there. Pregnancy as well. So there's 5 stages. And then just in the menstruating stage, you have 4 cycles. So 4 seasons, let's say, in a cycle of menstruation. So you have the menstruation, which is our winter, when we have fallow, that we have higher progesterone. It's good for when we want to research, restore, return within to replenish. It's also a time to clear, cleanse, and eliminate. Then we have the follicular phase, which is waxing moon, the morning, spring, blossoming. We're outgoing and full of enthusiasm and start new projects, get new ideas, be creative. Then we have the ovulation, when we're most likely to fall pregnant, which is full moon, mid-cycle, midday, summer, high estrogen. It's when we're blooming and we are verbally fluent. It's when the left brain is more active for creativity, emotional fertility, and fulfilling our projects. Then there's a luteal phase, which is the waning. It's the autumn, the evening, the withering, the reflective, letting go of the outgrown and making changes. So finishing projects is a good time for that. Okay, so we have those four. So in each of those, our hormones are changing. We have that every month for 35 years or 40 years or more. Okay, and then you have also on top of that, when you fall pregnant, if you fall pregnant, then you also have these huge changes for 9 months, and then they just drop, and then you have to adjust. So it's not like we straight away, even though we cycle again, it's not like everything just regulates. So we're adapting constantly to the phases of day and night, which is the natural hormonal cycle of men. So men just have that one cycle. And we then have those 4 stages on top of the menstruation, plus when we get pregnant, and then we have perimenopause, which can take up to 12 years for some women. For some, it's 3 years, but still, it's constantly changing. Your periods become irregular, so the hormones are irregular, the moods are changing, you gain weight, you have less energy, you feel sleepy and tired, brain foggy, all those kind of wonderful things that we're seeing at the moment to the extreme in all humans. Okay, depression, feeling lonely, all those things. We're much more emotional. So let's look at some feminine facts of disrespect. Okay, most anatomy textbooks use male bodies as the default, yet in utero, the first 3 months of life, we're all female. Adverts in men's magazines objectify women 76% of the time. And in women's magazines, 52% of the time. So that's a lot of objectifying women, okay? It's nearly all the time. Only 11% of girls worldwide would dare to call themselves beautiful. Imagine that, 11%. Every 10 minutes, a teen girl dies due to violence in this world. 33,000 girls become child brides each day. 1 in 5 girls is sexually abused before her 20s. Safety features in cars are designed for men, causing 47% more injuries to women in car accidents. Only Belgium, Denmark, Sweden, France, Luxembourg, and Latvia give women equal legal work rights. 22% of STEM professionals are women. Only 20% of national legislators worldwide are women, and when ridiculed or remarked upon, it's often for their hair, dress, or other outer appearances. Globally, 45% of women use hormonal contraceptives. Okay, so I've just told you how our hormones change and how they affect us. If you take contraceptives with hormonal effects, through hormones, it's going to change everything in your body, mind, okay? Because hormones are the physiological process, between mind and body, okay, and psyche, therefore. So globally, 64% of gynecologists are male still. And before the 90s, the 1990s, 95 were male. So that is still way too much. So I was just having a conversation the other day with a friend saying that I've had horrible experiences with gynecologists in France. Both were male. And it was, I think I spoke about it in one of the podcasts. Yeah, and I just think men should not be gynecologists. They have no idea what it is like to be a woman, to have a vagina or a womb or anything related to that area of the body. And why should they be staring into women's vaginas all day? It's beyond me. I find that pretty perverse. Anyway, okay. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, so internal freedom from patriarchy. And so we suffer to keep on the treadmill of patriarchy's productivity. As long as we feel free to be just as great as men assume to be, nurtured through society who thinks men are still the default. But the cost is higher for us because not only do we earn less globally, no matter how educated we are, we also work harder, cycle differently, and always feel behind because we can't rest those 5 days when we need to during our menstruation. That is actually what we need to be doing. I just want to get onto the contraceptives as a form of control. The hormonal contraceptives are touted to prevent and relieve us from many inconveniences related to menstruation. And of course, they prevent unwanted pregnancy. They often cause many more symptoms, leading to chronic conditions in the long run. Our body naturally produces the hormones we need to create life. Interfering with intelligence of our endocrine system, of course, affects our entire menu of hormones and neurotransmitters. This causes changes for our entire body and mind, some good, some bad, and all unnatural. Telling our organism it's continually pregnant is what the dairy industry does to cows. It's cruel, toxic, and controlling. Packaged as a freedom pill, we swallow it willingly. Eventually, it causes our moods, energy, and mind states to swing as our body naturally seeks balance. We risk depression, weight gain, acne, nausea, vomiting, changes in libido and vaginal fluids, changes in menstrual flow, headaches, migraines, breast tenderness, increases risk of breast cancer, hypertension, hypotension, endometriosis, gallstones, and facial discoloration. So that's lovely, isn't it? Worth not falling pregnant. Oh. So we need to reclaim our women's bodies' wisdom. Women's health is complex, it's intricate, and it's complete. We have all we need within us when we work with our internal wisdom. And if we had enough sense of time and rest and being able to listen to our body, then the constraints of this consumeristic world would not be taxing us to the extent it is, that we become dependent on all these external products for beauty, health, well-being, because it's already within us, because we're running at this rate that our body can't keep up with. This is what I keep telling my students. A body is slow. The physical body is slow. The mind is fast. We have a million ideas. We want to get so much done, but the body can't keep up. And the body needs a lot of physical movement for the hormones and our mood and our energy to stay at par. So we can't do that if we're running in a society that is all about extraction, efficiency, and productivity to an extreme that is all about exponential growth, which is not even sustainable. So why are we even trying to keep up? I mean, yes, we've got bills to pay. Yes, we have mortgages and all the rest. I don't, but a lot of people do, and that's why you feel stuck. But there's got to be another way. We can't keep going like this. And there's also people who don't have those stresses and are still suffering, you know. This system isn't working. And yes, we need therapy, but we need more than that. We need to really start pulling and cooperating and co-creating a new way of living. And I think the woman and the feminine is the way to do that. The feminine awakens the undefeatable qualities within us. When we feel almost ready to quit, she offers us insights into our relationships, into motivations and inspirations. She helps us identify struggles of another in ourselves, and also their defeats and victories to encourage us. You know, the feminine is that part of us that has the aha moments and really understands, oh, that's why I'm doing this. She is the source of self-acceptance and self-love. Okay, the feminine is embodying our shared human experience, recognizing that the personal is universal. She moves us beyond our internalized shame, regret, and grief, and releases those assumed stories of stigma. Seeing another empowered, authentic female or feminine heals our collective psyche. Self-fullness is reintegration of all we've denied, repressed, and rejected, and leads to profound satisfaction as self-esteem, self-worth, self-acceptance, and the unpredictability of self-expression are harvested from the process. Recognizing power exists to sustain and expand consciousness, and expanded consciousness is shares power equally. We heal relationships, we facilitate understanding, and we feel fulfilled. Embodying self-governance, we feel complete, feminine and masculine. We all yearn for and need leaders who mirror our innate humanity, dignity, and sovereignty, who nurture collective community, socially empowering creativity, and ecological sustainability, embodying bravery as well as empathy, moving beyond division towards partnership and true connection, because human nature is love in body, humankind. So, thank you for listening. I hope this was inspirational. I'm sorry if there are moments that I go off the deep end, but I am very emotional. And a friend of mine just said that the other day. Oh, you've been very emotional this year. And I think it's normal. God, I'm writing a book about emotions because it's something that's been suppressed. It's the feminine aspect of ourselves that has been pushed under for all these millennia, thrown in the bin like fascia. You know, people, the anatomists, they were dissecting bodies and trying to separate muscles from other organs. And there's this stuff between it called fascia, the connective tissue. And there are some people who've dissected many bodies and say there is no actual separation. There is not a trapezius and a rhomboid and a subscapularis. They are all one. They have, because there's always this fascia between them. But the fascia used to be just cut out and thrown in the bin, and they would just take these pieces of red meat and say that was a muscle and separated everything. And so it's good to separate. We need the aspect of reductionism to, like a clock, pull things apart, but then we also need to put it back together if we want that clock to work, if we want our society to work, if we want our body to work, if we want the mind to work, it has to work as one, not throw parts off and deject it, reject it, neglect it. Okay, that's what we're doing. And the difficulty comes when we start to realize the depth of rejection and needing to reclaim it all. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it here. And just say thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time to come to the end of this podcast. For those of you who are yoga therapists or yoga therapists in training or other people who are interested in speaking about subjects of the feminine and women, I would love to talk to you and interview, or not interview, but have a conversation on this podcast with you. Because, yeah, I want to move in that direction. I think there's not enough intelligent conversation about these subjects and what the underlying actual issues are. That if we lean in and act like men, we're not changing anything. We need to really get down to the nitty-gritty and find out what's going on. So that's it for me, and have a lovely week. If you want to donate, I would be very happy. Everything helps. So I'll leave links in the show notes. Thanks.